Hi guys, it's Karen Melvin here. So in the context of family estrangement, one topic that comes up quite a bit is reconciliation and often the pressures that people feel to reconcile with their family members. But what's happening lately with some of my clients is that they're in an unusual position where a reconciliation may be on the cards, or maybe they're kind of consciously within themselves deciding that maybe they might try to repair the relationship a little bit more. So this video is going to explore that. I want to explore reconciliations to really look at if they're possible, how they're possible, but also what makes an enduring reconciliation, because it's quite common to cycle in and out of estrangement, which means that the reconciliation wasn't strong enough, maybe there wasn't enough work made, and maybe more work is required for that if you end up back in a position where you may reconcile this time. So please give the video a like and a share, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already done so. The first question is a reconciliation possible? And it is in some cases, not always. I have seen families come together, work on their differences, and actually create an enduring and long-term lasting change in each other's lives. But not always. Some families can never meet each other in the middle. There's too many factors and too many complex characteristics of the estrangement which prevent people from meeting up. But it's interesting because there was a bit of research in 2015 in the US which explored estrangement amongst students. I think there was around 350 students. And they found that 46% did successfully reconcile from estrangement from their nuclear family. And that's their immediate family, their mom and their dad or their brother or sister, which is quite a high figure. The only issue I might have with this research is that it's not a long-term study. So we don't know if the reconciliation lasted. Did it go the distance? Or was it just a pattern where they made up for a period of months, maybe years, and all of a sudden the old status quo returned and they were estranged again? So we don't really know. But again, we can take comfort from knowing that the fact that there was such a high figure, it suggests that it's possible in some cases. Now, from my experience, for a reconciliation to happen, first of all, there has to be a change in someone's psychological reality, an internal shift, which triggers a desire for a connection. And this shift could be triggered by all different events. It could be a crisis, it could be a change in status, it could be a change in priorities. All of a sudden dependencies change and people start to think, well, this relationship, I need to prioritize it a little bit more. Maybe I was at fault. Maybe I need to listen to these people a little bit more. But they're also, the desire for reconciliation isn't enough. That's just the first step. There has to be an acceptance on both sides to actively work on the relationship. And really, depending on the history, if there has been particularly bad behaviours, bad attitudes, maybe there needs to be a legitimate apology for past mistakes. Not always. Some people are happy to let go very quickly and to focus on defining a new relationship. For others, they find it very hard to let go. But the biggest thing is that the apology has to be legitimate. If it's just a fake apology, which I hear of quite a bit, it never lasts. The relationship, it never endures. But also as well, it's important to talk about the relationship, talk about the past mistakes, because just to jump back in and try and disregard the past, resentment can bubble away there and sit there because there's so much unresolved stuff, so many past mistakes or attitudes which were never fully acknowledged, which means that they could also happen again and the old dynamic could return quickly if it's not addressed. And it's important to establish what is acceptable to you and what isn't acceptable to you. And again, this is part of communicating, and communication is such a critical part of why estrangements happen. It's also a critical part of how to maintain it. People stop talking to each other. That's a part of estrangement. If you're talking to each other, you become less estranged. In terms of working on the relationship, then you've decided you're going to reconcile, you've decided that you're both going to work on it. A lot of it is down to relational skills, learning to listen, learning to compromise, this magical word of boundaries that we all understand, that we talk about. It's very difficult to sometimes conceive what other people's boundaries are. So ask them, what is a boundary to them? What does it mean? How have I gone a little bit too far? Am I stepping over your personal space a little bit more? It's also educating and understanding the challenges that other people in the family are facing, understanding their inner reality, because it might give you more context into how the estrangement happened, how some person's behaviours may be affecting the whole family system. But the biggest thing is really becoming much more self-aware and catching reactive patterns around criticism, judgment, ignoring, anger responses that may be inappropriate to what's happening now. And it's hard work, and it's why I think a lot of reconciliations don't endure, because sometimes it's too much work for some people. But again, another part of it, I mean, I talk about individuality, and we are all individuals, even though we're part of a collective. And healthy families are one where they can respect that individuality, and they can see that you're your own person. You have your own views, your own beliefs, and you're entitled to that. But it actually isn't enough to just respect it. You actually have to promote it. You have to encourage it, and that empowers people. And all of a sudden, that feeling of empowerment facilitates closeness. It facilitates a healthy level of individuality, but also a healthy level of togetherness. And it's that dynamic, that balance of togetherness and close and individuality that really helps people to relate to each other in a completely different way. And again, it creates a much more enduring reconciliation. But again, it's important to not be naive and don't just think that I'm going to not address these issues. We can just spend more time around each other and all of a sudden things will be fine and we won't fall into the old dynamic. That could happen because we're all human and we all have our own triggers. Our psychology is shaped by so many complex factors that we have to address it. We have to own everything and we have to speak up. It's a very difficult thing to do, but from my experience, it's so necessary if a reconciliation is really going to last. So the next question is, will the reconciliation last or will it endure? And it's hard to know. It's a very tough question to ask, and especially at the initial stages of a reconciliation, there's obviously or sometimes a lot of happiness, a lot of joy, a lot of relief. But then the reality may sink in, and having this person, these people back in your life, and again, if there hasn't been any communication about the past, there could be a lot of resentments bottled up that may interfere with the relationship later on. Maybe old ways of relating to each other, reacting to anger, unrealistic expectations, miscommunication. They could all just fall back in because that's just human nature. People don't necessarily know any other way of relating to each other. So that could happen. That could mean that maybe it's not going to endure. This reconciliation may not be the one. What I'm always curious about is how many estrangements have there been in the past, and it's quite common to cycle up to 4 estrangements in one lifetime. So if this is the first one or the second one or the third one, it's important to ask, well, look, what lessons were learned? What mistakes did you learn or did you make in the last time there was a reconciliation? What mistakes were made from the other person's perspective? And it's trying to learn from these mistakes. Some people don't. They just fall back into the same cycle hoping. And that word hope is a dangerous word sometimes, because I know it's important to be hopeful and optimistic for life, but we have to be realistic and grounded. If there's been no work done, if the other people haven't changed, if you haven't changed, if you haven't worked on yourself, why would this reconciliation work? When relationships are very complex, they do require work. If there's no work happening, maybe it will work, I don't know, maybe it won't, but don't just let hope lead it. Use facts, use information, and inform yourself that what has happened in the past, what can you do to make sure it doesn't happen again. Next question is it the right time to reconcile? And it's a very personal question. I can't answer that for anybody. Each individual has to decide for themselves. I would encourage them to make sure they prioritize their own self-care and make sure that it's safe for them to reconcile now and not just to rush in. A lot of my clients have done a huge amount of personal development. They've processed a lot of the tough emotions. But you don't want to undo that hard work by just returning to the source of a lot of that pain, because you may end up getting hurt again. A lot of the work could be reversed quite quickly. So it's important to protect yourself. At the same time, you have to trust your instincts. And even though I may be biased towards encouraging my clients to mind themselves and prioritize their self-care, their instincts may be telling them that no, this is the time now for me to speak up and to express my feelings and my reality, and maybe they can be heard. And again, sometimes I'm wrong. I've had clients have said to them, be careful, don't just rush in, and they have rushed in the sense that they've written and they've expressed themselves, and a reconciliation was very, very successful from it. One client did it quite recently, and I was shocked at the response. It was such a positive response to the engagement, the letter that she wrote, and it was such a radical change in the whole dynamic. She wasn't from Ireland, but she was living over here. She decided to move home after the reconciliation. After all triggered by her own desire, she knew herself this was the right time. She knew that a letter was the most appropriate way to do it, and her parents listened to her, and she's never been closer to them. Literally in her entire life, she hasn't been as close to them as they are now. Again, now it was circumstantial as well. Her parents were getting older. They were probably reflecting on the relationship as well. So maybe they knew themselves this is a good time for them. But again, look, it was positive, hopefully it endures the whole relationship and their entire lifespan. But again, timing is personal. You have to decide what's appropriate for you. So the last question is, can all families reconcile? And I wish the answer was yes, because I believe family is the backbone of society. I think that we all function on an individual level and on a societal level so much better when we come from a healthy family which has healthy closeness and healthy boundaries. But that just isn't a reality. Some families will never be able to reconcile because there's just so many complex factors. And I listen to my clients, and they do so much work on themselves, but the sense that we both get when we're talking is how the family is exactly where they left them before the estrangement. And that's because it's tough going inwards. It's tough looking all the difficult emotions that are driving so many of the behaviours that led to an estrangement. And it is very complex. There's so many complex factors around personality, around pride, around ego, around not being prepared to compromise, around laziness, a lack of desire, narcissism, selfishness. But sometimes there's just so much negative history that some people can't get over it. They can't let go. They can't move past it, and it's safer for them to just keep distance. I mean, fundamentally it's about hurt, and most people are carrying hurt in some capacity, but not everyone is prepared to look at that hurt. And it's as much an individual tragedy as it is a family tragedy. On an individual level, going inwards and addressing it's not easy. No one said this is easy work at all, but it is groundbreaking. It can be transformational, but you can't force people to do that. You certainly can't force individual family members. If they're not prepared to do that work, then a reconciliation, it may not be enduring. The estrangement may change, that there may be some closeness, maybe you can see each other, spend time around each other, but there'll always be some barrier there that prevents real closeness. And that's what we would strive for in life, is to be really close to people, but a healthy closeness where there's a good balance between togetherness and individuality. But again, each case and each example has to be treated with individuality. Anyone watching this video, your family has to be treated uniquely, and you as an individual experiencing your estrangement has to be treated uniquely. And you have to decide for yourself if it's the most appropriate for you. Is a reconciliation possible? People will tell you this, but you know your own truth. You know the history. You know what has happened. And it's also looking past your own fears and your own hurt. And maybe deep down it is possible. It requires a lot of work, and maybe it means stepping out of your comfort zone and facing people. Again, you have to decide for yourself what's appropriate for you. Look, I hope this video was helpful, but I'd be very curious about your experiences of reconciliation. Have you managed to do it? Is this something that's on the cards? Maybe you reconciled in the past and it didn't last. Again, I'd love to know your experiences. What has worked? What did not work? And what would you maybe encourage other people to try? Because again, we can learn from each other as well. As I said, we treat each other as individuals and experiences, but we can also learn from other people's experiences, and it might inspire a different way of approaching, or a different perspective, or a different way of tackling the estrangement. So as always, guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope you're all doing well. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. If there's something you're not certain about, I'll try and get back as quickly as I can. And again, please give the video a share if it might help somebody that you know. So that's it, guys. Take care. I'll talk to you all very soon.